Tonight, the City Council is meeting electronically, specifically through Zoom, to prevent the spread of the COVID-19, and in coordination with the Cass County Health Department, the City of Belton continues to direct residents to stay home except to carry out essential services and to exercise. When you do go out for those things, remember to follow the CDC guidelines of keeping a physical distance of 6 feet and frequently wash your hands. Due to the size of the City Council to comply with this direction, the City Council meeting tonight is being conducted electronically. We welcome the members of the public who are observing and attending this meeting, being the link provided by the agenda. With that, calling a work session to order. The agenda of Belton City Council work session, April 28th, 2020. Items for review and discussion. We have firework sales permits. And Patrick, are you going to run with this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As stated in the council cover sheet, that was a part of the packet provided to all the council members. City staff went ahead and looked at whether or not there was a way to kind of get to the city having 24,000 residents. And so we had to kind of come up with our own model to how to get there. And that's explained in the council cover sheet. But what city staff did was took the biannual census estimate done by the United States Census Bureau, then took the number of building permits that have or final certificates of occupancy that have been issued, then multiplied that number by 2.52, which is the average size of a household in the United States. And then doing all of that, the city staff's kind of estimate of population is 23,817. So based on kind of the city staff's way of figuring out what the current population is, we're not at, the city of Belton is not at 24,000. So to have an additional fireworks permit would require a code revision.
Comments, questions? Councilman Clark, is that you?
No, I was just flipping back so I can see everybody.
Okay. Discussion? Councilwoman Peak.
We already have an ordinance in place. Their estimate doesn't meet the 24,000. So I would say that we go with no additional permit at this time. But I do have a question. Are we going, what our ordinance, it says census. Are we going to be doing an estimated census from now on? Or are we going to go with every 10-year census or what?
Well, I think John Sapp's on the line, but when I talked to him earlier today, what we discussed was we've always followed what the census is. And then the census provides a every other year update, and it's an estimated number that always comes from the census. So we've used that number. At the request of council at the last meeting, we did try to look and see, based upon the occupancy permits that we had, if there could have been a change since the 2018 estimate. And based upon those numbers, we just didn't reach it. So we will always follow the 10-year census, which the new data will come out around September 2021 for the 2020 census. And then, like I said, they try to do an every other year estimate based upon growth projections. And so that's always been the number from the census data that we've used to try to make it fair and show our latest population amount. If the council prefers that we just use the census, we can do that too, but we were just trying to provide the latest information.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Finn, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to thank the staff for digging into this. I know there's been a lot of interest on this topic that have been brought to my attention. That's why I brought it forward. And Patrick, I appreciate your time, and Alexa both for looking into it.
Councilman Van Winkle.
Yes. I know we discussed a little bit of what would have to take place if we were to move forward and expand. and it sounded a little bit complicated, a little bit, convoluted almost, to what we're going to have to, all the hoops we're going to have to jump through to make it fair. What I'd encourage the staff to do would be prepared next time we start to look at numbers in case we reach that plateau. So we're ready to move on it in a timely fashion. So we're not kind of behind the curve like I think we would have been this year if we tried to move forward regardless. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Peak.
Well, isn't that what was suggested or what was recommended? That number 2 is going to review the populated estimates each March or every other March, as Alexa just mentioned.
Is that in the agenda? Is that in there?
Yes, it is.
Was that a question for me?
No, for Alexa or the mayor.
For
I
Alexa
might
or the mayor?
interject one other thing after he answers.
Yeah, yes, it was in the document that we would try to look at the population in March of every year to see if the census had updated the information. And the reason we did that was to be able to provide enough time frame to follow our guideline. If we were to add, if that population did come back, we would then be able to follow our process of a lottery of the individuals that are interested, because we have a somewhat waiting list right now. And then there's a process that we do follow for a lottery to be able to pull another company out a name if they are interested in having another tent once we reach that population.
Well, and so if I may, if we remember, this current regulation went in around 2010, and they figured these from the 2010 census. So this is actually the first time we've had to come to this particular moment. And what we did opt to do was we'd say we'd review it each year. I felt like that even though they were estimates, that the Census Bureau was probably the most accurate information that we could find. And so that's kind of what we chose to go to. And so at the risk of, adding more confusion to it, I mean, it was a little bit vague. We're just trying to put, some precedent to it so that we kind of do it the same way moving forward each year. And I'm not sure what that process looks like. I mean, obviously we'll reach 24,000 before we get to the 2030 census. So it still seemed like an every other year estimate from them would be adequate.
Councilman Trutzel, you were up.
Initially, I kind of thought I was going to support this, but more I got thinking about it. If we start going with a slight modification on some of our rules and regulation, what I'm afraid of is everybody's going to come up with another issue that we need to modify or change, that kind of thing. So, I think we need to leave it the way it is and go with the documentation as presented.
Councilman Finn.
I agree with Councilman Trutzel. Yeah, I'm big on precedent. You said it, we have a code, we follow it. In no way, shape, or form do we want to undermine that or adjust that at this point. Logistically, it sounds like it would be a nightmare to do. It could be done. It'd be maybe not a nightmare, a process, one that is not necessary. So definitely agree with that, and just check on it every other year as we can get those updates.
Any other discussion here? I'm trying to read everybody's hand signals. Councilman Peak.
Okay, so are we going to do it every other year? Is that, we're going to get an estimate every other year? Is that where we're at?
Well, what we'll do is we'll check the census data, and if they have an update, we will go by that information. They typically post every other year, so that's when we would see that information change, but we will check it every March.
Okay.
Now, is there
Thank
any
you.
action that's needed?
Pardon me?
Any action that we need or to bring back or anything?
Not at this time.
Okie doke. Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, we're going to adjourn the work session. And at this time, we're going to begin the regular meeting to order on April 28th, 2020. And at this time, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Roll call, please.
Mayor Davis,
Here.
Councilmember Savage,
Here.
Councilmember Lathrop, Councilmember Trutzel,
Here.
Councilmember Van Winkle,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Davidson,
Here.
Councilmember Peak.
Here.
Consent agenda, one motion, non-debatable, to approve recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item be taken from consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second, discussion. Councilman Lathrop, when he called in tonight to tell me he wasn't going to be here, said that he was concerned a little bit about the 331,000, and he would like a phone call probably later to talk about that at some other time.
Happy to do that.
Okay. No other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Okay. Are no personal appearances. Ordinances. Motion approving both readings of bill number 2020-23.
An ordinance approving a development and maintenance agreement for Shady Lane, a planned unit development in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Councilman Clark.
First of all, I'd like to say what the gentleman or the group that's doing that out there is doing a wonderful job on those facilities. My only concern as I drive through there and watch the progress being made, it seems like they put in a lot of new sidewalks, but this is supposed to be for a senior living community, and I just don't know if there's enough like ramps for people if we need it. And I don't know what our requirements are for that. The other thing I looked at is it seems like almost every one of his sidewalks and coming from the parking lot is he's got one of those the curbs right there in front of where the walkway is. So I just think it's a hazard, and just what I've seen when I've driven through there. So, but overall, I'm pretty happy with what they're doing out there.
Other comments? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 That motion passes.
Move for
Move
second.
for a second.
Second.
A motion and a second for the second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Motion approving the second reading of bill number 2020-23.
An ordinance approving a development and maintenance agreement for Shady Lane, a planned unit development in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion passes. B, a motion approving the first reading of bill number 2020-24.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to execute the third amendment to the tax increment financing contract between the city of Belton, Missouri and Menard, Inc. for implementation of the Southtown Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan as amended.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Did you get the second?
Yes.
Okay, discussion.
Mayor,
Ma'am.
if you don't mind, could I give a little introduction?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before you tonight is an ordinance that's authorizing the third amendment to the TIF contract for the Southtown Plaza TIF. So specifically tonight, we're talking about Project Area 2, which are the outlots for Menards. Just a brief history, TIF began in 2009. Menards was actually constructed in 2016. And in 2018, there was the last time this TIF was amended. Again, it's for the outlots, and the construction timetable stated that construction had to be completed by May 31st of 2020. So I just want to remind everybody that the annual 5-year TIF hearing was in January of this year. And at that meeting, the council made the determination that the Southtown Plaza TIF was making satisfactory progress. Since then, Menards has requested a 2-year extension. Tyler Edwards, who's the real estate representative for Menards, is present tonight to answer any questions that you have. So with that, I want to thank Tyler for live streaming in from, I believe, Madison, Wisconsin. So, and maybe I will ask, so Alexa, the letter from Tyler was
Right.
distributed?
Yeah, it was distributed yesterday. Andrea, is Tyler still on the call?
Yes, he's there.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So if the council has any questions of Tyler, you're welcome to ask him at this time. Mayor.
Councilman Finn.
Awesome. Mr. Edwards, I had a question for you. If you had an opportunity to work on the Independence location, Menards.
Yes, I was involved in the Independence, both in terms of getting the store approved by the city, and then I've been around since I think it's 3 outlots there have sold.
Absolutely. So that was kind of leading into my question right there. What's the difference between our site and that site? It has 3. I'm not sure how many outlots are there specifically, but they've got 3 of those outlots already filled and are underway with business. And we're kind of sitting bare right now. I want to see what's the difference and what needs to happen moving forward to make this a win.
Sure. And from our perspective, in Menards, there's not much difference. Belton and the Independence stores are both on major highways, big intersections, and we have a big flat space for outlot development. The tricky part comes when some of these outlot users have their own target markets, kind of like we do, but a much smaller scale. Menards picked Belton versus a town near it, or Independence versus a town near it. We knew kind of where we wanted to be and pick the best spot possible. I feel they do the same thing depending on where they feel their customer needs are, where their planned growth is, where competitors are, and we kind of look at the same thing.
Absolutely. Let me ask you then, do you feel like Menards made a good decision on this location?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Our store does well there.
I agree with you. I mean, I frequent there often, and so I spend quite a bit of money there. But it's a little unnerving to me that it's still sitting there. We're excited about that project and to see it move forward, but yet we're looking for results to get those outlots sold. Are there any is there any prospective interest out there that could give us some hope moving forward as we're just watching it sit?
Well, up until about a month ago, we regularly got interest in these lots. People would call on one of these lots, and the way we handle it is if someone were to call on the Olathe store lots or the Independence store or the Kansas City North store, we make sure that person gets all of the information for all Kansas City store lots because they may not know we have another store. We want to make sure we fully explain what all of our options are, so we can, try to hit the biggest base possible when we talk to these people.
Absolutely. Let me ask you then, are there any restrictions with our property here in Belton that's holding us back compared to another site that may be picked over ours? Is there anything that we just don't have or anything that we're mandating that others aren't?
No, nothing that would stop someone from building other than, Belton is definitely a growing community and has a slightly smaller population than some of the other cities we have stores in. But you are catching up. That's why we put a store there, because we know you're going to.
Well, we appreciate it. I mean, I love having the store there. It's great. Just we're looking forward to seeing that project take off. It's just an awesome location wise. It's right there at the cornerstone of our city. So anyway, looking forward to seeing those projects take off here in the near future. Hopefully we'll get past this pandemic very quick and we'll be on the right track. Thank you.
Next. Anybody? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
No, there's only first on that one.
Okay. I thought the mayor was waiting for something.
Well, you can still do
He
it.
can still make the motion.
Well, yeah, he can. It just has a motion for first reading on there.
Okay, Councilman Finn?
I'll second that motion to move it forward.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Aye.
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 That motion passes. Motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2020-24.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to execute the third amendment to the tax increment financing contract between the city of Belton, Missouri and Menard, Inc. for implementation of the Southtown Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan as amended.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Aye.
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 That motion passes. Resolutions. We have no resolutions today. City Council Liaison, Park Board.
Yeah, there are no updates since we met last Tuesday.
Mayor's communication. Wow. I guess this might be a good time to talk about the adventure that we've been on in the last few weeks and all. The governor's made his announcement, and I'm sure that we'll have some discussion here. The governor has posted his feeling on the pandemic, and we're going on a case. So I think I'm going to just open that up with the comments and discussion on what we see for our future in Belton here. Anybody want to get in on this discussion? Councilman Clark.
I think it's good that we're working our way back into what I call civilization again. I think we got enough small businesses and just local businesses that we need to get these people back working. I've been I guess I classified as an essential employee, so I got to go to work every day and I get to go make money. I think it's good for everybody to go out and do that also. I never understood how Kohl's couldn't operate, but Target or Walmart could operate. I mean, they sell the clothes and all the same stuff. So if we limited them to 25% of their occupancy or 10%, whatever they fall underneath, I mean, I've been to Walmart a couple of times and it scared the crap out of me. So I think we should move forward and allow everybody to open up in a phased environment.
Chief Person, could you kind of give an overview of what the governors and even the county, what the overview is there? Is Chief with us?
Let me get me going. I think Andrea had me all shut down. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let's see. Won't let me turn my video on, but you can hear me. The governor's order, not actually the governor's order. It is the state health officials' order. So the director of Health and Senior Services is the one that actually issues the order. And then the direction, the FAQs, frequently asked questions, come out of the governor's office for the most part. So the direction that the state is issuing is that effective midnight, May 4th, right there where the third ends and the fourth starts, the next order will take effect. And that order will last until May the 31st. With that order, it allows all businesses to reopen with the caveat that they have to be able to meet social distancing requirements based on the order from the White House and the CDC. And those guidelines are that you're able to maintain 6 feet distance. And there are also certain guidelines for groups meeting of over 10. There are provisions that restaurants can reopen their dining facilities as long as they don't seat more than parties larger than 10, or that the tables are not any closer than 6 feet together. It does allow for certain jobs, certain businesses where the employees, the host has asked me to launch my video. Well, I never shut it off.
There you go.
So anyway, it allows for those businesses that require their employees to interact at closer than 6 foot distances may still be able to require those employees to operate at closer than a 6 foot distance. The state of Missouri, the governor has stated that all positions, all jobs, all businesses are essential, that there is no business that is not essential. It does also give guidance to outdoor activities as well as indoor activities. It allows for parks, gyms, salons, all of those type businesses can reopen. However, they do require that there be social distancing in those areas that can be, and when there can't be, they strongly encourage that there be PPE used. So those are that's sort of the mile high view of what the order says. The mayor has signed an order. I believe all of you may have seen a preliminary copy of that order. He signed it right before the meeting tonight. And Belton will be following the guidance of the governor. The county is also following that same order. In Belton, the only difference is that we are asking that each business, each restaurant, each business, each retail business, each organizer of large group activities file a plan with the city as to how they will be able to meet those requirements that are listed in the governor's order and the White House and the CDC guidance. And so that's what we have asked. It takes some of the onus off of city staff so that we don't have to go out and do a study and provide each building with their occupancy. We don't have to go out and monitor to make sure that each business is doing what they're supposed to do. They are going to be giving us a plan where they acknowledge this is their square footage. Based on the square footage, here's the number of people they will be allowing into the business, and here's how we're going to allow the seating for a restaurant, or if it's a large venue like Memorial Station, if they're planning a wedding reception, here's the way the seating is going to be in there so that it will comply with the social distancing. In the case of parks and golf courses and all of those type activities, here's what the business plan is going to be so that we meet those requirements. Then if the city gets a complaint, we can go to that business plan, we can go to the business and make sure that the plan is adequate and that they're following the plan that they have filed.
What about schools and graduation, maybe?
Schools are still shut down by the governor's order for the rest of the school year. It will allow for the school districts to plan for a graduation as long as they can meet the social distancing requirements.
Okay, I'm ready for some questions or comments. Who's up? Councilwoman Davidson.
So I know in the last week, our numbers in Cass County are down significantly. And I'm wondering, is the county now able to do contact tracing? And also, what is the status, if there is any, of tests available in Cass County, both for COVID as well as antibody?
The county, there is a task force made up of mayors and officials from each of the cities and the county, that working on a plan that would allow for testing to be done, antibody testing to be done within the county. There is a not-for-profit fundraising effort that's being organized, if you will, by the Cass Community Health Foundation. They are providing the pass-through, if you will, for the funding for that. That task force will be having a meeting tomorrow to try to finalize some of their plans moving forward. I believe initially that they will begin with some of the higher risk populations and the first responders in order to get a test group to begin and develop a baseline for that testing, eventually moving that testing out to a broader group so that we can get a feel for the number of actual cases that may have been in the county, how many people may have already had it, how many may be asymptomatic and have had it, or how many may have already developed antibody immunity towards it. So that testing, there is a plan to move forward with antibody testing at this point. There will also be testing done for symptomatic people. The plan is to continue that and to try to expand the testing of the symptomatic people. Our hospitals have been an integral part of that plan, both the Belton Regional Hospital and the Cass Regional Hospital. They both continue to treat patients. If there are positive patients identified at Belton Regional, they are at this point being transferred into the city to Research Hospital for actual treatment. So at this point, our hospitals are not overtasked. They are still treating patients and intend to actually be expanding the services that they are able to offer right now. So I'm not sure if that goes further than what you wanted or if not quite enough.
No, that's great. I mean, for me personally, I just kind of want to know where we can get an antibody test as soon as that's humanly possible.
As soon as the funds are available, and as soon as it can practically be and tactically be pushed out to the county. There is a plan to expand that testing and be able to offer it to the public. They will have to put that plan in place. Obviously, it would overwhelm the sites if we just said, all come. There will have to be a plan put in place where appropriate populations are identified, invited, and then scheduled to actually come to those drive-in type clinics.
Thank you.
Next. Councilwoman Peak.
Chief Person, this plan, okay, the businesses have to submit this plan. They're submitting it to City Hall. And then once they submit it, they can open, or is somebody looking at the plans, or?
The plans will be submitted and filed with their occupation permits. And the plan will be the current discussions are that there may be some plans pulled randomly and periodically checked for compliance, but mainly we will rely on the businesses to police themselves unless we receive a complaint about a particular business, and then we will actually pull the plan and go check with that business, make sure that they are following the plan that they provided and that the plan is appropriate. With the number of businesses that we have in town, it would be a physical impossibility between now and Monday morning to be able to accept, approve, and then begin any type of enforcement action. We feel that the best bet at this point is to have those plans on file and to follow those up if and as needed.
So the plans, just for anybody who might be listening, the plans must be submitted to the city before they can open their door.
That is what we are requiring by this order.
Okay, thank you.
The plan does not have to go through an approval process. The plan does not have to have any type of holdup or scrutiny. All they have to do is say, based on our square footage, here's the number of people that we will allow in our business, and here's the seating plan or the floor plan, or here's how traffic will move through our business. It does not have to be anything more than here's how many folks we're going to allow in. Here's the guideline that was provided by the governor's order, and here's how we intend to comply with that order.
Okay, thank you.
Next. I guess I'm going to say, Chief, in our works that we did, how much different was our plan from the governor or from the county, maybe?
Initially, the county had appointed a task force to work on establishing a return to work or a open business, open Cass County, whatever we want to call it. But they had begun work on this plan based on the guidance that came from the White House and CDC had put out a document, as well as a document that was put out by Johns Hopkins. And both of those documents made reference to a four-part staged or incremental opening for states, for governor's guidance, for counties, for businesses, how those would reopen. That's what had been planned and had been tentatively agreed upon by the task force. It had gone back for final editing to the county health official. It had been redistributed yesterday for a meeting that we were to have today. But after the governor's order and after the last night, last night there was a Pleasant Hill City Council meeting. Their mayor issued an order requesting that the county only go as far as what the governor had gone. Then earlier today, the county commission also determined that they would not issue an order, that they would also go with the governor's order. What had been proposed would have been a little more incremental in that it would have had an order that went to May 17th that would have done basically what we're doing right now, except that it would not have opened the restaurants or churches or gyms and community centers. This order opens up all of those. The other would have been incremental so that it would have opened up the other businesses until the 17th. On the 17th, they would have examined the data and had another order that would have gone into place probably until May 31st, where larger groups could start meeting. And then there would be another opening probably 2 weeks after that. It was pretty much set in 2-week intervals to open up more incrementally than what we're doing.
Any comments or questions on that? Councilman Savage.
Yes, there are at least some businesses in our community in Belton, especially on Main Street, possibly others, that probably will not be able to sustain and stay within those limits. I respect what the purpose is and what the intent is. Will they have some options as far as being able to serve possibly outside or anything else that come up with that would offset some of the business? Likely would have maybe 3 or 4 tables at most, which would be very hard for them to stay open and sustain the expense. So any thoughts on that?
Restaurants, by the governor's order and by what we are adopting, are encouraged to continue to do curbside or drive-through business. They are encouraged to take whatever precautions they can, including PPE, if they feel that is appropriate. What we do need to recognize is that what we have been told nationwide and globally is that the largest concentrations of infection occur in places where people have closest extended contact. And so far that has been nursing homes because of the population, the elderly population and the close contact that they have, followed by churches and restaurants. Our largest infections outside of nursing homes have been churches and restaurants. And so that was one reason that we were trying to reduce and mitigate those contacts as much as possible, and opening incrementally. We still encourage, and restaurants are important because of the close proximity of the seating and the extended contact. When you go into a restaurant to have a meal, quite often you're there for an hour. By the time you are seated, by the time you are served your drinks, then you place your order, wait for the food, then you enjoy a leisurely meal. Quite often that whole process takes up to an hour, and there's quite a bit of contact and close contact between tables and entry and the wait staff. And so that's one of the reasons that extreme caution needs to be used by those restaurants as they reopen, and they make sure that they are following the hygiene recommendations of the CDC and the White House as they move forward and provide the service we all enjoy when we go to a restaurant.
So thank you for that. I think the big thing there is to give some direction so there's not question if they can continue to serve outside or some version of what their options are. I think that's what I wanted, which is what you said right off. Thank you.
It may look quite a bit different when you start going back to a restaurant. What they're recommending is that wait staff wear PPE. Your waiter or waitress may have a mask on when they come to wait on your table. They are also recommending, instead of having shared menus, that they have disposable one-time use menus. So you may have a photocopied menu when they come to the table instead of the shared menus that we're all used to. Those are all recommendations for dine-in facilities as they move forward. Heavy on the recommendation.
Thank you.
More questions or comments? Councilman Trutzel.
This kind of picks up on Councilman Savage's. I read an article the other day, and it has to do with the restaurants, and they said a lot of these restaurants will not survive on a 50% capacity. I think, I think the restaurants are really concerned. What Councilman Savage's comment was pertains to all the restaurants, not just the small ones.
I didn't understand your last sentence. I'm sorry.
The comment was that it's not just the small restaurants, it's all the big restaurants who have a lot of money involved in their buildings and whatever have you. It just said they cannot operate at 50% capacity. I understand why we have to do it, but they're saying a lot of these restaurants are going to be in deep financial trouble at 50% capacity.
The recommendations that have been made for restaurants and for businesses to reopen were not made in a vacuum or just by the governor's staff. They actually had extensive meetings with the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, as well as, and I'll probably get the organization wrong, but it's the Missouri Restaurant Association. And they actually, they understand that there will be, that this has been very hard on their businesses. And today in the presentation that that was made by the governor during his daily press conference, they actually had the executive director of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, and he acknowledged that businesses in Missouri had lost about 25% of their income, their revenues during this outage, this stay home time, and that there would be probably 15% of particularly small businesses that would not be able to recover.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Hey, I've got a few things here that I probably ought to ask Chief Sapp too. Chief Sapp, you want to chime in on anything in there so far? I'm not ignoring you because I can't see you. There you are.
No, I believe Chief Person does an excellent job of framing that.
Okay. Okay, Chief, and both chiefs, who's going to get the data from these testings when we do this testing in the county? Who gets the data?
Well, that's something that's going to be discussed tomorrow at their meeting. But the current thought and intent would be that the county health department would receive the reports from the testing company, and then they would share that back to the employers, since the initial group of people being tested are going to be particularly first responders and some other city employees in some of our smaller municipalities that don't have as many first responders.
Okay. It's all scary, folks. You got to know that. No matter what, you got to know that you got to take this serious. It's so abstract too. The things that we're going to find out with this new order, even things that we haven't even began to think of yet. So it's very difficult. I still recommend everybody go by wearing your mask. Shoot, I wear a mask to bed at night. I don't like light. So any other comments from council? Okay, city manager, your turn. What do you think?
I think if you're talking to me about my comments, we are going to talk about our upcoming meetings. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 12th. I am yet to determine whether or not, and the mayor and I have been talking about this, whether we will have continued meetings via video or what it will look like. I do want to let the council know that with these orders that the mayor signed tonight and will be coming forth tomorrow, we'll have a press release with all of the information. City Hall will remain open for business, but both the annex and City Hall building will physically be closed. Those lobby areas are very small. We do see a lot of foot traffic, and at this time, I'm not comfortable opening it back up for people to enter into the buildings. So I'm going to keep those buildings closed. People will still be able to pay their bills online, just like they've been doing. They'll be able to still come forward, they're able to fill out all their forms online. They're able to pick up forms at the front lobby area. They're able to use our drop-off area, and we're still providing that service to them. I'm inclined to wait at least an additional 2 weeks to see what the testing is like. And we still have people teleworking from home. Right now, it's been very busy at the city of Belton. So we're seeing a lot of people that we're trying to transition positions in and out of the building. If one person is in, another person, we try to have them working from home that day so that we don't have a lot of population that's here for cross-contamination. And so I did want to let the council know that that will be the stance, that even though many businesses are opening up on Monday, we have been open all along. We've always still been continuing to do business. However, City Hall and Annex will remain closed. So as we get closer to our next meeting on May 12th, more information will be coming forward as to whether that is a meeting in the council room that we're in right now, or if we should continue to do that via video conference. We're just now getting it down, so that'll be good. And Mayor, that's all that I have.
Okay, other business. Have we got other business?
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
if I could, I would like to, while we're still talking about this and businesses, I would like to acknowledge and thank our business community and our faith community for their response during this very tough time. I know that it has not been easy, that it has been very difficult for businesses. It's been very difficult for our citizens emotionally, financially. None of the things that we have done, we have taken lightly. We haven't made any of these decisions in a vacuum. We've been following the best practices, and I firmly believe that that's one reason why our region has not been hit as hard and the curve was not as dramatic as what was initially forecasted. I think that our citizens, our community, our business community has done a fantastic job. They've all learned ways to adapt. Our faith communities have been absolutely fantastic in the way that they have continued to serve the needs of their parishioners and their members, and kept their doors open. So many of them have learned to use technology in completely different ways, and I really applaud them for that. And we intend to have a cyber meeting next week with members from the faith community to see what it looks like moving forward, keeping our churches or getting our churches back open. This Sunday, they will still fall under the order that keeps them closed, but next Sunday, I believe you will actually be seeing some physical services, albeit quite a bit different than what they may have experienced in the past. But all of us will have a new future.
Along those lines, real quick, Chief, I'd like to add on to that. And I'm glad you said all that, because we've got to encourage people to still stay cautious and careful. And you've got to know that when you go out, you've got to think like it's still there. Our whole way of thinking has changed. Seriously, I don't know when we're going to feel like we're completely out of the pandemic, but you have to be cautious. So when you attempt to go back, you got to know that it hasn't disappeared. It's still there. And so you have to be cautious. You have to have that alarm going off saying, be safe. Somebody else was going to say something? Councilman Savage.
With everything I've listened to here, how is the best way to get this business plan together for these businesses that open? They're going to open Monday, and my understanding is to get a permit or whatever you're asking them to do. City Hall is still very limited to get into. Where do they submit this? How do they get this done and fast? And who to?
That's actually part of the order, and it will also go out in the frequently asked questions and in public announcements that we will make, and folks can go online. There is no permit. All they have to do is file, if you will, submit what their plan is, what their business plan is, in order to meet the requirements of the governor's recommendations. And so that they can, there is a link, a website that they can go to, and they can do it electronically, or they can drop it by City Hall if they do not have access to computer or email or Facebook or anything else. They can actually take it physically to City Hall and drop it through the mail slot.
So would there be a grace period? This is Tuesday, so you don't have the information out yet. So you're looking at possibly Thursday, Friday. They got to open Monday, or they're planning on, I can assure you a lot of them are planning on opening Monday. So do you have some flexibility there till we get all this stuff in?
No.
I don't know. I'm asking.
Well, and no one wants to go out and be the bad guy. If there needs to be some urgency or no one will comply,
Right.
there obviously are going to be some that are not able to comply by midnight Monday morning. No one's going to be on their doorstep. We don't have enough people to go to all of the businesses to check for compliance first thing Monday morning. If we get a complaint that XYZ restaurant has people sitting at the bar 6 inches from each other eating their eggs, we're going to have to go check and see if they're actually doing that, and then tell the business, please do not do that. Come into compliance. Here's how you will do that. If we get a complaint that such and such store is not keeping people 6 feet apart and they're stacked up in line going through the checkout, we will go out and visit with those folks and tell them, hey, put some marks on the floor, tell people not to get closer than 6 feet, and do that. We're not going to be able to go first thing Monday morning and check all of these businesses for compliance.
Right.
Well, Chief, I want to say that with that being said, I believe most of the businesses, I believe all the businesses want to comply. I think we're throwing them all a bit of a short notice is my only concern. I think everyone's going to want to comply. They want to stay open. I
Tim,
would certainly hope that's the case.
We weren't given much notice.
I understand.
The plan that we were beginning with daily sometimes before the end of a meeting, things will change. And so we're trying to give as much notice as we possibly can in announcing this tonight, so that by Monday morning, if someone is doing business, their priority should be, what is it going to take to get me in business? And if that means I'm going to write out a page that says, okay, my square footage of the building is X, given this formula, I can have 25 people in the business. I'm going to make sure that I don't have more than 25 people in the business. And I'm going to mark out the area by the register so that people know what 6 foot distance is. Boom, there's a plan.
So I think that's well said, and hopefully there's enough people watching this that just gives us something to work with. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, same thing with tables. If we know it allows a movie theater to reopen, well, all the movie theater has to do is say, here's our plan. In order to keep people 6 feet apart, we're only going to use every other seat or every third seat or whatever that's going to take. It can be that simple. So if somebody is going to do business, I think and these are the governor's guidelines.
Yes.
We're just saying, what's it going to take for your business to meet those guidelines?
Thank you.
Alexa, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the governor's guidelines are out there already on the state, and we will have a press release tomorrow that not only includes the state director, Department of Health and Senior Services, his order, but also the frequently asked questions that the state has put out to correlate what they've got. It's an 8-page document. It's pretty detailed, and can provide that information. The caveat that we have in the city's order, so we'll have the state's order, the state's frequently asked questions, the county's order, and then the city's order. And the only thing that differs from the city's order is the one caveat where we're asking people to submit a mitigation control plan that shows how they're going to be able to comply. It's always been an honor system. It's like now, we can't have a police officer that's, every other block. We've always asked the community to volunteer, be a part, and follow along in good faith and intent of the state order. And so that's what we're asking them to do again. And in this situation, just as Chief Person stated, this is about stating this is what my occupancy is now. I'm going to follow the state's guidelines and reduce it by this percentage. And now I'll be able to have this. This is how many I'll allow. This is how I'll structure. I'll put, tape on the floor every 6 feet, kind of like what the grocery stores did. It won't be any issue for them at all. They've put arrows on the floor. They're only allowing certain people in. They're running certain hours, and it's totally up to people whether they want to do this or not, and whether people want to go out. Just because businesses are opening back up doesn't mean people have to go shopping and be out in the community. If they still feel that it's in the best interest of their health to stay home, then by all means do stay home. And so that press release will go out tomorrow. We'll show the city's order as well. That's contained within section 2 of the order, and we will have that out first thing in the morning.
Questions there? Councilman Finn? Okay, I saw that. Okay. Anybody else? Any other business? Seeing none. I'd entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610-0211 and to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610-0212, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
I was on mute. Aye.
That motion passes. And we're adjourned. And we'll go into executive session. Thank you.